Man, oh man, what a fucking win.
Oh man.
What a fucking win. Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mack. I can barely contain myself. Fuck the regular intro. I gotta let it go, man. I gotta let it go. So many people are at me on my mentions. I had to mute my fucking phone because people count this team out way too fucking much. So I'm sorry. The language is probably going to be all over the place this episode. I'm probably going to be all over the place this episode. And I know you will be too, Nikki. But
Mack.
We deserve it. We deserve it. Cavaliers beat the Boston Celtics by score of 118-94. And we beat these motherfuckers at their own game, Nikki. We shot 46% from three-point distance to their 23%. I am so fucking proud of these guys, man. We had a game plan. We came in and executed. And after that game one where the Cavaliers, they got their asses kicked, but they did some good things. They did some good things in game one. They took care of the ball. They turned the ball over their fewest time since 2018, a playoff game. Back then in the final year of the LeBron James era there, I knew that they could do this, man. I knew that they could do this. It's not every day that you'll be able to hold the juggernaut that is the Boston Celtics to under 25% from three-point distance and just three-point makes, right? Because on the regular season, we got to keep it a buck. These guys, they like to take that three-point shot, and that's another thing right there. We heard in game one that JB wanted to hold them below 40 three-point attempts, and they blew past that by the start of the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Tonight, they took just 35 attempts. The Cavaliers ran them off of that three-point line, and by virtue of that, the rotations were crisp. The closeouts, probably the best that we have seen them be all season long, or at least up there with some of the best defensive performances that we've had. But as we often say, as I said in my breakdown, as I heard you articulate when I had you on a couple of weeks ago, the Boston Celtics live and die by that three-point shot. Now, we know in game one, they shot 18 of 46, which is 39.1%. That's damn good. But tonight, holding them to 8 of 35, that's fucking brilliant. That is a brilliant defensive performance. And you did that without the likes of Dean Wade, who is one of the better perimeter or point of attack defenders out there. You did that without Jarrett Allen, who is Bam Adebayo-ish when he's able to switch out there. I know I'm going on a rant here, and I know you cleared away for me to do that by way of my ISO here, but man, I got to toss it off to you. What are your initial thoughts? We'll dive into the game itself, but what are your initial thoughts for this win tonight?
I think we have to start at JB Bickerstaff, because if this was a loss, like every loss we've seen over the last year and a half, we start at JB Bickerstaff, and we deserve to start with him today in a good way. Holding the Boston Celtics to 35 threes, that is a coaching adjustment. Getting the confidence in guys to step up in a high-pressured game two when literally every single ESPN journalist has counted you out. The odds in Vegas have counted you out. Every single NBA fan outside of Cleveland, Ohio counted us out. And to get Evan Mobley, who has been a non-factor on offense his entire playoff career, to step up in a game like this and be the second most important player to get this done, tremendous job by JB Bickerstaff. It was the best coach game of his career, his first playoff road win of his career. So as much as we hate, as much as people will take the time to take a jab at JB, make sure the praise is just as loud today.
Hey, he is now 1-10 on the road, if I am not mistaken. And damn the record. This is the best win of his career against the best.
Damn the record.
He has probably played. Hey, one of the things that stuck out to me from JB today was the ATO in the third quarter of tonight's game, if I'm not mistaken, when he was in his bag for much of tonight. But that ATO, I can't remember exactly when it occurred, but I know it was in the second half. JB, he did some good things tonight, man. I know a lot of people don't want to give him credit, but I thought the rotations were crisp tonight. I thought it was, you can make what you want of the Niang minutes. It is what it is. I get it. But at the same time, the Cavaliers, they do not have Dean Wade. Marcus Morris is hit and miss with his production out there, so you have to turn to Niang at certain points. Tristan Thompson, bro. I thought the inclusion of Tristan Thompson in tonight's game, especially after what you saw Luke Cornett do in that second unit for Boston in game one, where he was able to pull down 10 huge rebounds, including 6 of the offensive variety. I thought the inclusion of Tristan Thompson, that was pretty big. And I thought that was a ballsy move by JB Bickerstaff to do that. Huge.
Hell yeah.
Nice win.
Tristan dominated. It was great to see. JB, the Cavs still have this struggle with the non-Mitchell minutes. And I think guys like LeVert got his confidence back a little bit tonight. DG, I think, has more room to grow, but had moments today when he got his confidence back. So the non-Mitchell minutes is definitely a work in progress. But JB made a big step today in the non-Mobley minutes. You're right, Mobley, at some point in the first half, you had to save him because you knew how many minutes he was going to play. You had to save him. You throw in some Niang minutes. In the third quarter, Mobley picks up back-to-back fouls on Luke Cornett. Picks up his fourth halfway through the third. Boston's in the penalty. So your only real true big man is out there with foul trouble and the other teams in the penalty. And JB switches him out for that Tristan Thompson substitution you mentioned. That's a huge move. That's a gutsy call, but he did it and he managed it very well. Not something we're accustomed to, especially on the road, but JB got the recipe right tonight.
Ah, man, listen. We may never see this type of masterclass of a performance on the defensive side of the ball from the Cavaliers again. So I'm going to bask in the glory. I'm taking this shit game by game. A lot of people, they've already written the Cavaliers off to win or to lose this series rather. So I'm going to take a victory lap here tonight, just because I don't know if we'll get this opportunity moving forward. We hope so. But man, tonight it should leave a good taste in everybody's mouths. I'll start with Evan Mobley, who was at a point in tonight's game the focal point of the offense. Not only that, but he looked like the best player out there before Donovan really started to kick things off. Evan Mobley would finish tonight's game with 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on a super efficient 9 of 15 from the floor. And we saw him attempt 2 threes tonight and make one of them, something that he hasn't quite done since the start of the Magic series. And the defense was hellacious. One of the things that I saw in that first quarter from him, despite the fact that Boston was collapsing on him, and I know you made this point on social media earlier, despite the fact that they were collapsing on him and trying to force him to drive and kick to shooters like Max Strus or Isaac Okoro out there, he stuck with it. He had his, I wanted him to keep his hands or keep the ball a little bit higher out there, because it constantly seems like when he receives the basketball, he always holds that thing super low. But he fought through it. He fought through the contact and he attacked and he was aggressive. And what we often say about Evan Mobley is that an aggressive Evan Mobley is the best version of Evan Mobley out there, because we know he has that offensive talent. We know that this dude is brimming with potential, but he has to realize it. And tonight was a step forward. Easily, in my opinion, the best game of his career, considering the stakes. Maybe not from a statistical standpoint, because we've seen him put up more, but considering the impact that he made, considering the opponent, considering the stakes, as I mentioned, do you consider this to be the best performance that we've ever seen from Evan Mobley?
Yeah, fuck the stats. This is the best performance we've ever seen from Evan Mobley. This was 100% the biggest moment that he rose to the occasion for. And I thought the biggest adjustment, there was a lot of talk today. We saw today, Brian Windhorst really got the birds on Twitter chirping when he talked about how Evan Mobley has failed in terms of his offensive development that we expected. I hate that statement, because there's so much that goes into the development of a player. We look at it from the results. We look at Mobley's not scoring enough. Mobley's not doing this. We look at the wins and losses. We look at the results, but we don't look enough at the process. We don't look enough at the circumstances of why Mobley, I mean, think about it. He's been playing the 4 for most of his career and sharing touches with Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland. He missed over 30 games of the regular season this year. There's a lot of, he has JB Bickerstaff as a coach. JB Bickerstaff, his forte is not offensive development. It's, so overall, Mobley has to go through his own path. He has to go through his own path. And I thought today he took a step. He took an amazing step in his journey. I think the biggest adjustment that Mobley made is that everything for him was face up. Everything. Instead of worrying about backing people down, instead of slowing it down and going to your discomfortable turnaround fadeaways, Al Horford wants you to back him down. He wants you to try to outmuscle him. Mobley, nobody can block you. He realized it today. He rose every time he got the ball. Face-up game was on point. And I'm just going to say right now, Mac, Evan Mobley, top 3 pump fake in the NBA. That shit is vicious.
That's a big time statement right there, man. I love it. I love it. Evan Mobley, as we've often heard, we have people, so many critics out there disrespecting this man, thinking that he is a glorified Derek Favors. Man, get that shit the hell out of here.
ESPN, I know you could save some money, bro. I know you could save some money, ESPN. I got you.
Oh man, fuck these guys. Fuck Boston. I'm sorry. If there are any Boston fans in here, I'm sorry. I gotta let loose because y'all been letting me have it. People are already writing this Cavs team off, so let me take my victory lap. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland at certain points. Everybody really, really contributed tonight. That's something you haven't seen throughout the bulk of this playoffs. It was Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell for much of the first round series against the Orlando Magic. And we were just sitting here wondering, like, when the fuck are these other guys going to step up? When are we going to see Darius Garland look like the max player that we know that he can be? And the stat line is not going to suggest that he did that tonight, as he contributed 14.7 boards, 4 assists, but he did some really good things out there. And he had that 3-ball dropping, 4 of 5 from 3-point distance. But the thing that really stands out to me tonight from this starting unit is all 5 of these motherfuckers scored in double figures tonight. All 5 of them. You have Max Strus, who has had a pretty rough playoff showing thus far. 12 points. Donovan Mitchell, we'll dig a little bit deeper on him in a moment, but he scored 29. Darius, we already mentioned 14. Evan Mobley, we already mentioned 21. Isaac Okoro, let me tell you guys, he had a horrid first round series from an offensive standpoint from many different regards, especially from 3-point distance. This man could not hit a 3-point shot to save his life. Fast forward rather into this Boston series, and he's taking a 3-point shot like he's confident again. And we knew he passed up so many opportunities during that Magic series that it wasn't even funny. And then you see him go out there and play as confident as he has in these 2 games. And it just completely reiterates the point that this man is clearly a much needed role player on this team. And I just wanted to ask you this, man. Of the starting 5, who are you wanting to see break out the most prior to tonight? Because we saw a litany of guys have some big-time games, even off the bench. And we'll get to them, I'm sure. But who was the guy that you were just waiting to break out?
To be honest, when we say breakout, we really think about scoring. We think about a guy who's going to step up and carry us on the scoreboard. But the thing is, we're facing the Boston Celtics, and the Boston Celtics is a team that really prides themselves on their switchability and taking away your biggest strengths. So really, a big part of it is who they're going to give up to us. They gave up Mobley a lot of times in the first 2 games. Let's see if they adjust from that. In terms of breakthrough, I just want to see guys fulfill their roles. And Max Strus, we'd like to see him hit some more shots. I believe the Max Strus game is coming at some point. We've seen the cold streaks in Miami. He kept starting and finishing games for Eric Spoelstra for a reason, even when he was not shooting well. He's bringing that energy. Mobley scored when he had to. Okoro stepped up defensively when he had to. Finishes well at the rim. Darius Garland, the 4 for 5 shooting is great. I thought there were times when he was still could be more aggressive. Times when I don't know why Mazzulla ran Tillman and Horford together, but he did it. Yeah. And I think there were moments where Garland could have attacked some of those switches more instead of doing his pass and cut. You got to be a little bit more selfish. But overall, Darius Garland, the number one thing I saw from him today is that he stepped up on defense. JB Bickerstaff, he really does understand his personnel, and maybe sometimes he overestimates them. But today he correctly estimated it. He trusted Darius Garland to guard Derek White. He trusted him, and in the very beginning, when they went on that 11-2 run to open the game, Derek White was exploiting Darius Garland. He was breaking him down. He was creating the 4v3. He was getting there, right? And I was thinking to myself, damn, you just have to move him off. You just have to put Garland on Holiday or somebody else who's going to maybe not be this lethal off the drive or something. But he stuck with it. And Darius Garland for the rest of the game made Derek White a non-factor. He did not get destroyed. He stayed with them. He showed and recovered and he contested. It's not just the fact that Boston will shoot better. The Cavs can control how much they shoot and the quality of those shots. We know you could funnel against this Boston Celtics team. We know you could turn them they could do anything, but you could funnel them into shots that are a little bit less ideal. Darius Garland is the weakest link, but today he stepped up and gave them shots that were less ideal.
I think that is eloquently stated. Now, coming off of game 1, victory in which Derek White put up 25 points. And make no mistake, if you're not familiar with Derek White, you better familiarize yourself with that name, because
He's
this
nice.
man, he's been hooping he hooped through the first round of the series, first round of the playoffs, and he came to play in game 1, scoring 25 points and knocking down 7 triples, if I'm not mistaken. And many of those attempts did come against Darius Garland. And that was the one matchup that I really highlighted in my breakdown, because I knew that it could be make or break for this series. Now, we'll have to see if that's the case moving forward, but I very much enjoyed Darius Garland hold his own defensively against Derek White tonight. And when you're talking about the aggressiveness, taking advantage of some of those switches out there, Boston, they have some of the best guard defenders in the league. But when you don't have a Jrue Holiday and when you don't have a Derek White out there opposite you, you better go and attack out there. You better look to get to the rim. And we know that Darius Garland is capable of doing that. I want him to snap out of the deferral mode that he is often in at times. And I get it. You're playing with Donovan Mitchell. You want Evan Mobley to get his touches in a game where he has it going, but you can still get yours, bro. And I want you to realize that. I want you to understand that moving forward. And in this series, as you stated, Boston is not going to shoot this poorly. They're going to come back. They will come back with a vengeance. It's what they do. You're not going to be able to hold them to 35 attempts for the rest of this series. It may happen 1 or 2 other times, but for the bulk of the series, however long it lasts, that's not going to be the case. These dudes led the league in 3-point attempts this season at 42.5 per game. And in the 3 matchups that they played you, they've gotten upwards of 39 plus attempts. They come to shoot the ball. They live and die by that 3. So having guys that can go out there and go toe to toe with them, it's awesome, man. Tonight was just such a monumentous win for numerous reasons. One, to me, and I know this is probably going to be a bit of a stretch here, but I'm a huge Rocky fan. It reminded me of Rocky 4 at the moment where Rocky punched Ivan Drago and he cut him, and it just. You seeing that this team is human. They're not machines. They're not going to shoot the lights out every fucking time that they play an opponent. We saw Miami take advantage of that in at least one of their games. When they don't shoot well, that Boston has some real struggles, because they're not somebody who will go in and destroy you from inside the painted area like the Cavaliers are capable of doing, especially when they have both of their bigs. But it just totally reminded me of that point in Rocky 4 where he punched Drago and he cut him, and you could clearly tell that the confidence is there. It's there, and I know that might be a far-fetched reference, but that's what it left me feeling like.
It's a beautiful metaphor, because I think this is a fist fight. I think the Cavs need to learn how to punch and take punches, and it's a game of runs that you have to be ready for. Like we've been dealt a lot of punches this year. The first round, for some reason, had a lot more punches than we expected.
Bro, can we talk about how fucking physical that first round series was and how it was being officiated versus what this series seems to be officiated like?
And we're going to be talking about how it prepared us for this series, how we're ready to punch back when we get punched. And the Cavs today took every single punch that the Celtics threw at them, and we just delivered haymaker after haymaker. And honestly, Mac, I think one thing that I noticed, you referenced the Miami Heat game. The Miami Heat game when they won in game 2, and a lot of people are comparing it to this game 2 win for the Cavs. These are not the same thing. The Miami Heat shot a franchise record 23 threes. They shot something that their entire franchise has never done in the playoffs ever. Okay. That was great for them, and they had great moments there. The Cavaliers made 13 threes in this game. They shot a higher percentage, mostly getting to the paint. This is a repeatable performance. We are capable of doing this. And you're right. Boston did not shoot that well, and they're going to shoot better. This is probably their worst shooting game of the series. Game 1, probably going to go down as one of their better shooting games of the series. They're probably going to have another one like that. But I think the big thing that we need to take away from this is that our offense is actually a form of defense against this team. The Boston Celtics, they treat misses and defensive rebounds as they get. It becomes a fast break for them. They immediately go down the court, pull up. They rely on that pace. That's how it gets them going. Our ability to get to the free throw line, our ability to make shots in the paint, shots that are repeatable, shots that we can get throughout the series is huge. It allows us to control pace. It allows us to take away shots that they rely on as a steady part of their diet. And when you force Jason Tatum to the half-court game, I'm sorry, I'm taking Donovan Mitchell in the half-court game over Jason Tatum.
Hey, you said it the last time I had you on. What did you say? You will take Donovan Mitchell in the clutch at 10 times out of 10 over Jason Tatum. And I don't think that's a slight to Jason. And when I first heard you say that, I'm like, bro, this man, he has made a declarative statement. He clearly believes in it. And tonight, Donovan showed that. And we haven't even really fucking talked about Donovan tonight. And how crazy is that? Because we knew, in that Orlando series, especially after Jarrett Allen went down, that Donovan basically had to carry and will the Cavaliers to victory, because they're just nobody else really was coming to play outside of maybe Darius Garland for a few games. But even him, he would go missing at certain points, and he would make the head scratching errors that we've seen him make constantly during the regular season. But it feels good to not even really reference Donovan Mitchell too often in this pod, when the man, he put up a near triple-double, 29 points, 7 boards, 8 assists. Pretty efficient too, 10 of 19 from the field, including 5 of 7 from three-point distance. How often does that shit happen and you're not really talking about him? How often does that happen and he is not the, one of the guys who you really need to reference the most in a victory, especially against a team like the Boston Celtics?
Because at halftime, he had 6 points. At halftime, our leading scorers were Evan Mobley and Caris LeVert. Other guys stepped up. Donovan was able to be a decoy and create for others. And then in the third quarter, he said, give me Jason Tatum. I'm going to make some soup.
Oh, man, I can't wait to clip that one. Especially in that third quarter, I believe, where Cleveland outscored Boston 36-24. And let's talk about that second half in particular, because if I'm not mistaken, it was tied heading into half 54-54. But Cleveland outscored Boston 64-40, if my math is correct, in the second half. The Cavaliers, yes. We know, like, the third quarter has been the bane of our existence all season long. And it's kind of been that way for the past couple of seasons, or really during the JB Bickerstaff era as a whole. But they came out and they made it a point of emphasis to attack, to run these guys off the three-point line, and to be aggressive out there. And I'm reveling in this because, again, I don't know if we'll see another performance. I'm hopeful. I believe that this team can get the job done.
Extremely hopeful.
But we need to see them do this consistently. And, based upon what we saw tonight, I think that they can replicate it. As you said, just 13 makes. It's not something that it's not like they shot otherworldly or anything like that, or they broke any records. They were just, they did shoot 46% from three-point distance, but that came on 28 attempts. And the big thing that sticks out to me, especially after a game one in which they were heavily out-rebounded, the Cavaliers responded on the glass tonight, winning the battle on the boards 44-31 after Boston pulled down 55, if I'm not mistaken, rebounds in game one. And what do you think? What do you think that's all about? How were they able to overcome the loss of a Jarrett Allen, who has been the third leading rebounder in the playoffs so far? How are they able to out-rebound Boston tonight?
It's funny. There's 94 people watching this thing, and there's the thousands of people who on social media talk about history. History is this beautiful thing. It's this factual thing. But in the world of sports, sometimes it's a misleading thing. Sometimes we reference history and we use it as just a reason why we think certain things are always going to happen the way we think they're going to happen because they've happened. Whatever. The point is, the Cavs in this era of basketball have faced 3 teams in the playoffs: the Knicks, the Magic, and the Celtics. The playoffs are about matchups. The playoffs are about what you're up against, the personnel, how they're going to play. The Knicks and the Magic are very similar. They both are dominant on the glass. They both create different mismatch issues. The Cavaliers haven't always been the strongest rebounding team, but they've always had the personnel and the capability of rebounding. And I think in this matchup against the Celtics, where we're able to create better offense more consistently, that allows us to make more shots. That allows us to get back on defense and be set. Defensively, honestly, I would say the number one reason why we got more rebounds, especially on the defensive glass today, and I've been very critical of JB. This was a coaching change. This was JB saying, we're going to give them these type of shots. We are not going to allow them to have these kind of pull-ups. We are not going to allow Derek White to get easy threes. We're going to make Jason Tatum beat us to the mid-range. We're going to make other guys shoot out of rhythm, and we're going to be one and done and close those possessions. And that's what we did today. It's going to be a battle. I bet the rebounding battle will flip from time to time throughout the series, but this is the blueprint. Score on offense, shoot a respectable percentage, and funnel them to the shots that we can live with on defense, and then go one and done.
Man, I could not have stated it any better myself. Nikki, one of the things that this team has struggled with so far in this postseason has been the play of the bench, the contributions from the bench. Tonight, you got 30 points total from the Cavalier bench, with Caris LeVert leading the way with 21. We'll talk about him in just a minute, but coming into tonight's game, the Cavaliers bench was contributing just 19.6 points per game in this, through 8 games prior to tonight. Tonight, they come out and they drop 30 on Boston, one of the better benches, if not really the best bench from an efficiency standpoint in the NBA when you're talking about net rating, when you're talking about three-point shooting. Caris LeVert in particular, we have often seen this man just play like a different player every single night that he's out there. And I believe, and there's this guy in one of my chats that I'm in, Chase, he put it very, very eloquently. He stated that Caris, I don't have the exact tweet, but it was something to the effect of Caris LeVert plays like he is possessed by the ghost of a different NBA player every single game. And I could not, I think that is like the most succinct, most accurate statement ever, because you just do not know which version of Evan Mobley, well, not Evan Mobley, I'm looking at the chat, of Caris LeVert that you're going to get from game to game. Tonight, you got one of the very best versions of Caris LeVert. Can you just speak a little bit about what you saw from Caris LeVert tonight, and whether or not you believe that he can keep that going heading into game 3?
We need Caris LeVert. The Boston Celtics thrive because Derek White is being guarded by the 4th or 5th best defender. Caris LeVert needs to look at himself and realize he's being guarded by the 3rd or 4th best defender, and he needs to take on that challenge and create. We have the spacing. There are the driving lanes. You have the size and the handle, and you are physical enough and finesse enough to get your own shot and create for others. We've relied on him all season through the injuries to be that secondary creator. On this stage, with the experience that he has, being one of the more savvy vets on the team, we need him. We need him to be almost like our Derek White, but in our case, more of a playmaker, more of an individual scorer, but taking advantage of the matchups that he's getting. I will say this, many people in this chat and throughout Twitter, they did complain about the Niang minutes. I understand the Niang minutes. It's hard when you have the injuries that we have to not give Mobley an earlier breather so he can play in that second half longer. But what was one thing that we noticed during the Niang minutes when he ran him with Morris, the Cavs were 5 out. And Caris LeVert had a breakout second quarter. We obviously slipped in that second quarter, but Caris got his confidence and his rhythm in that quarter with all those driving lanes. So I think JB needs to replicate that kind of spacing with a lineup that does not fold defensively when Mitchell goes to the bench, in addition to Garland playing off LeVert more. But I think LeVert needs to be with Garland whenever Mitchell is benched, and LeVert needs to always be attacking that 3rd or 4th best defender. We need him. He needs to be our 3rd leading scorer, honestly, because I'm sure Boston's going to take away things. They're going to maybe make things harder on Mobley. You don't exactly know what you get from Garland every time. LeVert is that kind of person who's going to consistently get a defender that he can attack.
I think that is a great point. I think, we've seen him, especially in last season's playoffs, where they wanted LeVert to kind of function as that 3rd option out there, especially when they bumped him up to the starting lineup in place of Isaac Okoro, especially from a spacing standpoint. I've kind of been let down at certain points from Caris LeVert, during this postseason. Coming into tonight, he was struggling, but after 9 games or so now, he's still just, his averages are 8.6 points and he's shooting 18.2% from 3-point distance. The stats can be mighty deceiving for Mr. LeVert, but the one thing that I can say is that when this man is on, when he is attacking, when he is finding guys, whether that be off of the drive and kick game, dump offs, or lobs at the rim, whenever he's doing that and he is engaged offensively, we see him lock in on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's important. You referenced the 5 outness with Niang out there. I think without Jarrett Allen, especially without Jarrett Allen out there as an option, the Cavaliers have had to lean on small ball more than ever. And I know that's something that you were kind of alluding to prior to well, even at certain points during the Orlando series without Jarrett Allen when he missed the final couple games of that series, you're really pointing to the fact that small ball might actually favor the Cavs in particular matchups. And tonight, you saw the effects of that at certain points with certain rotations that JB put out there. The Niang minutes, they're going to be hit and miss. But as I said before, when you don't have a Dean Wade available, when Marcus Morris isn't giving you too much from an offensive standpoint, and for those of you who didn't quite catch that, Morris only put up 4 points tonight on 2 of 4 from the field, but Niang, he was right there. He was productive at certain points, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 of 4 from the field, and he does have a sense of gravity about him, as we know that he is a volume shooter. That's specifically why he was brought in, so that he could balance some of the lineups. He could provide an option out of the power forward position that could actually shoot the 3 ball. So I think that he still has a place within the rotation as much as people despise that idea. I think that he is going to have games where he actually makes an impact outside of the box score. That said, I walked away from this game feeling like it was an absolute masterclass from JB, man. And I don't know how many times we've been able to say that. Heading into game 3, which is at home, by the way, do you feel like we will see a similar performance from JB? Do you think that this is the rotation to stick with? Because tonight's bench rotation was LeVert, Morris, Niang, and Thompson, which is a little odd, right? Because you got 2 4s.
No Sam Herro.
Sam 3 minutes. Sam did play
end,
3
right?
minutes tonight, but it was in garbage time. So JB basically went with 3 bigs and a guard, right? You have, if you consider Niang and Morris bigs, I do, but I mean, he essentially went with 2 4s and a 5 off the bench outside of Caris LeVert. Do you think that is the way to go in the series, or do you think it'll be game to game?
I think it will be game to game. I think I think the Tristan Thompson minutes were really a result of Mobley's foul trouble. And I think there was also something that happened. Like, I thought the 5 out was definitely new. I think just throwing that out, it didn't exactly work, but you have to try these things just to see what you get from it. And down the line, if more injuries happen or if a matchup comes up, like, everybody needs confidence. Niang probably doesn't have a spot in this rotation once Wade and Allen come back, but I understand the dabbling, and I understand, especially when Mitchell isn't out there to maximize the spacing to get guys scoring, which was working for LeVert, not so much for Garland. And then the defensive lapses were not overall worth it. But I like the experimentation, and I definitely think it would be game by game. I can expect. I still think there will be a Sam Merrill game. He comes back, and there's going to be a resurgence there. I bet Niang will get a game when he's needed. It just really depends on because Boston's a very deep team. And outside of their 5-man lineup, their starting lineup, I'm curious how they shift around their bench and what they do differently. They may not. They may stick to the guns, fine-tune some things, try to make it a conscious effort to shoot more threes. Guys will get more aggressive, stick with their philosophy because it is the one that got them 60-some wins in the regular season. But I could see a world where JB completely remixes everything again and just plays differently, because that's what you kind of have to at this point, just to see what you can get out of guys. I think there's still some adjustments he can make to unlock Garland in the non-Mitchell minutes, for example. So there's going to be more tinkering for sure. This is a chess match, and this was just the second turn.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably the best way you can put it. It is, the playoffs are all about adjustments. I thought JB, for what it's worth, made a very, very good counter coming into game 2. We know that adjustments are not his strong suit, or at least they haven't been throughout the duration of his career. I mean, the playoff record speaks for itself. But he did win his first road game ever, and I thought that a big part of that was the rotations, was the adjustments, some of the things that we haven't quite seen from him for large stretches out there tonight. But I did feel like the players kind of picked him up. I just don't know what else to say, man. I mean, tonight was an awesome victory. It was such a quick turnaround to come into the series. Boston got a lot of time off. I'm sure that kind of played a role in it too, with Cleveland basically getting just a day really between the 2 series to really to settle in and get a little bit of rest. But I do believe that this is something that they can finally put into their into their confidence and let it be a boost, and let them see that these guys are humans after all. They're not robots. Like I said, harkening back to my my Rocky reference, These guys can be beat, and I do believe that Cleveland has now found that out, and time will tell if they continue to have that confidence heading home, where the home team usually has won during the duration of this playoffs. If I had to press you on it, if I put a gun to your head, which I would never do that, obviously, but if I put a gun to your head, are you taking the Cavaliers, man? Are you taking the Cavaliers in this series?
I've taken the Cavaliers from the beginning. I've said since February, we have the best player in this series. We have Donovan Mitchell. He's averaging over 30 points to the game. Jason Tatum has been a no-show. Today, we made the deliberate effort to make Tatum beat us. We prioritized the shooters that he was kicking out to. We said, Tatum, you can go one-on-one way more often against us. He did not deliver. I'm sure he's going to respond. I'm sure it would be better, but this is the game plan. We have guys we trust against Tatum. I don't know who they have who's going to stop Donovan Mitchell from getting 30. This was a huge sign. This was a big game. This proved that we could win on the road. This proved that other guys than Donovan Mitchell can score. This proved that we could make adjustments and take punches and play in a tough environment. This proved that we could win this series. So I still have Cavs in 7. I'm sure Boston's going to punch back. Today was big because game 3 and 4 are not a guarantee. We're undefeated at home, but they're not a guarantee. So we've bought ourselves enough confidence and reason to believe that we can get this to game 6 in Cleveland. If we get this to I've said this to you, game 6 in Cleveland is on our home court. I'm taking us in that game. And then if in a game 7, there is no such thing as averages or records or anything. It's a fist fight. It does not matter what you think will happen. Anything can happen in a game 7. I am taking Cavs in 7 because we have Donovan Mitchell.
Hey, unless you're Cleveland, who had the biggest game 7 comeback in playoff history. That said, yeah, I mean, this team, they should have all the confidence rolling now. Jason Tatum coming off of game 1, in which I believe he only scored 18 points, and it was very inefficient. I think he was 7 of 19, if memory serves me correctly. Tonight, not the most efficient night as well. He did score 25, but he was just 7 of 17. A lot of his points production came from the charity stripe where he drew a ton of contact. Something I'm not even gonna dig into.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm not even going to dig into that tonight. It doesn't matter because we got the win. But man, it feels so damn good to be able to say that, because a lot of people wrote this team off, and I myself, you have been confident since day one in the fact that you believe that this team can go out and beat this Boston team in 7 games. As of late, especially after that just really, really competitive series against the Orlando Magic, a completely different team with a completely different offensive philosophy. And that's crazy. Like when I was doing the breakdown for this, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was the stark contrast between the way that Orlando operates and the way that Boston operates. Orlando takes basically the fewest triples in the league, and Boston takes the most. And we know Orlando is basically paint focused. They score the bulk of their points within the painted area. They use their incredible drivers and Paolo and Franz and company to get to the rim and draw a ton of contact out there. Boston is basically a completely different team who operates with a completely different focus out there. They shoot that 3 and they will live and die with the results of that. And tonight they died, right? Down goes Boston. I hate to say it that way.
Down goes Boston.
That's exactly what happened. I don't think you're going to be able to hold him to this few attempts moving forward, but I think you have the blueprint now. I think you do have the blueprint. Do you feel confident? Do you still feel confident that they can win the series even without Dean and Jarrett? Or are you factoring in their presences, for lack of a better term, into your prediction for the series?
I factored in their absences into the series.
Okay.
I believe that we still have the talent, the shooting, the defense, the capability. I think we do. I think like guys like Strus and LeVert and Okoro, they make up a lot of what we lose with Dean Wade. These guys are switchable defenders. These guys do gang rebound. Like, they do buy into these things. The disadvantage is Jarrett Allen. I really wish we had him, especially with the Mobley minutes. If we can split them and add that even more dangerous of a rim threat, that'd be big. But there's advantages to this. Like Mobley playing the 5 gives us more space. It is creating things for us. So there's reason to believe we can still do this, especially because they're missing Kristaps Porzingis. And you're right. Like, compared to the Magic series felt like Rainbow Road. Like you could do it, but then you got to Game 7, and then suddenly the next series is Rainbow Road mirrored, and it's just like way harder and completely opposite, and just like throws you for a loop in a short turnaround. But the Cavs found their balance. They got right side up, and today was it just showed focus. It showed focus to come out and dominate in the third quarter, which you've been struggling with all playoffs. It showed focus to close it out on the road in one of the hardest environments in the NBA. It just the Cavs responded. That was the biggest thing. And I have a question for you, Mac.
Sure.
You're Boston, right? Like, we're playing chess. Part of playing this is that it's not just what you're going to do game to game. You come off of a win. You have to anticipate what they're going to do. So you're Boston. You're Joe Mazzulla. You didn't shoot that well today. And the Cavs, for reasons what they did and what reasons you didn't do, the 3-point shooting could have been better. You could shoot more, or what have you. But somebody made a good point here in your chat about how Boston doesn't know what to do if they're not getting every cheap call or hitting 40% from 3. So if you're Joe Mazzulla and you're not shooting 40% from 3, and they are taking away some of your 3-pointers, what would you do? What would you do if you're Boston in a situation like this? If this happened again, how would you respond?
Honestly, I would look to go to the mid-range a little bit more. The 3-point line, the Cavaliers have really, really tried to emphasize running them off of that. Like I said, they average upwards of 42.5 3-point attempts per game. If you can run them off that 3-point line and they're not getting a ton of penetration, which is crazy to me, because without Jarrett Allen out there, Evan Mobley is your lone line of defense truly at the rim. And we know Evan Mobley is a defensive player caliber of the year type of guy out there, but there's only so much that he can cover up for, especially if you're starting Isaac Okoro, a tremendous defender in his own right, but not a true power forward out there. But in a matchup that does favor him, I do think that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, guys like that do have a distinct size advantage over the likes of an Okoro, the likes of a Max Strus. To get to put your back to the basket, try and get to that mid-range a little bit more. I don't think that the whistle is going to be nearly as friendly as it was tonight, because I thought it was a little bit more balanced tonight, especially after Game 1. Game 1, it felt like everything was being called Boston, and even on the fouls that did not result in free throws, I felt like if you just breathed on a Celtic, it was a foul. Tonight was not necessarily the case. I think that they have the requisite size from a positional standpoint to back some guys down and shoot over them. In addition to that, I talked about Luke Cornett a little bit in that second unit. Without Kristaps Porzingis out there, Al Horford has been pressed into the starting unit at that center position, and what he does best is shoot the 3 ball. He's coming off of back-to-back seasons now during the regular season, shooting above 40%. And what they like to do is operate 5 out. But what I would propose if I'm Joe Mazzulla, I'm not going to lean further into shooting more 3 balls. I would emphasize the mid-range game, and I would look to attack in the interior without a rim protector out there in Jarrett Allen. I really honestly would do that. Now, whether or not they have the requisite talent, well, I'm not going to say talent, because clearly they are very talented. I don't know if they have the requisite makeup from an offensive standpoint to truly take advantage of that outside of Jalen and Jason constantly looking to penetrate and draw contact. But that's what I would do. Honestly, I just don't know. I don't know if they have a ton of answers to respond when their 3 ball isn't dropping. What would you do?
No, that was the answer. Jalen and Jason are the answer. Here's the thing: Jason Tatum has shown us multiple playoff runs throughout. You look at all the collapses when Boston's not shooting well from the 3. When they have to mix in the variety, Jason Tatum does not always take the best shots. He doesn't make the shots that he thinks he can make. He's not as consistent in that in-between game as we think. He's developed as a play creator. He's a shooter. He's gotten a little bit better at finishing, but all in all, the Cavs can live with him trying to create in the mid-range and trying to get to the rim. And if he's, just laying it all on the line just to try to get to the free throw or take hard contested shots. You're right, they have the size advantage, but I think we can live with that compared to the kick out offense where we're always scrambling. And credit to JB. JB did a few switching up today. Sometimes he did the show and recover. Sometimes he just straight up switched Mobley onto guys and then everybody gang rebound off the miss. Like he switched up the coverages on these guys. So it wasn't just always straight up switching or straight up like trying to recover or try to defend a mismatch. Like we threw some different looks at him. And if you're Boston, this is why you paid for all these shooters and why you gave Jason Tatum that money, why you gave Jaylen Brown that $300 million, because when they take away the threes and when they're protecting the rim, it's on those guys to create. And they did a decent job. Tatum got to the line, did not shoot nearly well enough, though. I will say this. I told you that I think Donovan Mitchell is better than Jason Tatum. I got another one, Mac. And this isn't just
I can't wait to hear what kind of shit's going to come out of your mouth. I can't wait.
This is the situation that I'm seeing in Boston because Jaylen Brown, especially after last year's playoff run, and the $300 million contract he got. Okay. Mm-hmm. I am actually extremely impressed by Jaylen Brown. I think his mid-range game, he has exceeded Jason Tatum. I think his ability to finish around the rim, he has exceeded Jason Tatum. He is looking like way more of a complete offensive player. Truly, he really is. And I'm starting to get this vibe. I'm not saying that he's like Jalen Brunson, but what I am saying is sometimes a player never really discovers how great they are when they're playing next to another player. Sometimes they have to have their own situation. And I think the cold truth, I think Boston might want to start running a little bit more of their offense through Jaylen Brown. I think when things get tough like this and they need buckets in the midi or they need more downhill penetration, I think Jaylen Brown is a better answer than Jason Tatum. And I think there could be a world where, let's say the Cavs win this series, complete failure for the Boston Celtics, and you have to split that duo up because I really do think there's a world. I'm not ready to say fully that Jaylen Brown's better than Jason Tatum, but I don't think Jason Tatum's a top 10 player anymore or whenever we thought he was. And I think there's a world where not that Jaylen Brown's better, but that Jaylen Brown should be the one who's taking shots at the end of the game. Jaylen Brown should be the one who you want to get into those mid-range opportunities when your offense starts to stall. I think sometimes they try to play through Tatum and then it snowballs because he's a rhythm player who's learned how to play with his teammates and everything. But in terms of what he can do with the ball by himself, I think Jaylen Brown might be the bigger threat than Tatum at this point.
That is an interesting concept. I do have to admit, I don't know if I'm there yet, but I do think that's an interesting concept. And I think I've actually heard it referenced on multiple occasions outside of this series, even that the Brown Tatum pairing or duo rather may not be may not be able to get you over the hump. Now they've been together for what 7-8 years now, and they have been to one NBA Finals where they came up short against the Golden State Warriors, obviously, but they have been involved in the playoffs, and they've had deep playoff runs in most every year that those two have shared the court with one another. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm prepared to say that. If you look at the stat sheet tonight, it's probably not necessarily going to be the best game to highlight that from a statistical standpoint. But I do think you might be onto something. You might be onto something because a lot of the shots that Tatum takes, and even some of the ones that he makes, they're not good shot quality. They're just shots that he puts up. Some of them are highly contested. We saw that in game 1. Cavaliers defended him on some possessions, probably the best that you can defend anybody, and he still made the shot. And that's what good players do 9 times out of 10. But when you need to lean on somebody down the stretch, maybe you're onto something. Maybe Brown is the guy that you want to go to instead. Tonight, just to reference his stat line, 19 points on 7 of 17 from the field was Jaylen Brown. Basically the same as Jason Tatum, 7 of 17 from the field as well. But the difference between the two is that Tatum was able to get to the line. He took 11 free throws to Brown's 5. We'll have to see. We will have to see. I do know that similar to the Cleveland Cavaliers, if the Boston Celtics are to fail with this current roster that they have, look for a big change. And I think that would be warranted, especially after 7 or 8 years of this duo not being able to get over the proverbial hump. We've already talked ad nauseum about Cleveland and what the ramifications of losing in the first or second round could be for this team.
Theirs are bigger.
They have pretty big ramifications themselves. A lot is riding on their postseason as well. I don't think they're going to clean house or anything like that, but there could be at least one big change, and maybe that is it. But who knows?
For sure. Yeah, and Guile says, "Oh snap, JT being on a top 10." I mean, at this point, let me just ask you, Mac, who are you taking? Jason Tatum or Donovan Mitchell?
I got to ride with my guy, Don. I mean, listen, Donovan Mitchell has not garnered a ton of playoff success past the second round, right? We know that Jason Tatum has been to an NBA Finals. We know that Jason Tatum has been to an Eastern Conference Finals. Donovan Mitchell is still trying to get to that point, but from an individual standpoint, Donovan Mitchell is that dude. He is that guy. Donovan Mitchell.
Who are you going to take then? Jason Tatum or Jalen Brunson?
Woo, that's a tough one, man. I think Jalen.
I'm gonna name 10 players that you would take over Jason Tatum.
Okay, as of right now, I am taking Jalen Brunson over Jason Tatum.
Okay, let's knock out the easy ones. Jokic or Tatum?
Jokic, obviously.
Embiid or Tatum?
Embiid.
Luka or Tatum?
Luka. That's a little bit tougher. That's a little tougher, but I'll take Luka.
What do we got? Kevin Durant or Tatum?
The world is not smiling favorably upon Kevin Durant right now, but I would still take Kevin Durant as a better overall player than Jason Tatum.
What else? Giannis or Tatum?
Oh, that's Giannis. A healthy Giannis for sure.
What about Jimmy Butler or Tatum? Healthy.
Oh, that might be where I draw the line. I like Jimmy, but I think Jimmy is aging. I think I still might take Jimmy over
Anthony Edwards or Tatum.
Jason over Jimmy.
Anthony Edwards or Tatum.
Anthony Edwards, no question.
Okay. Guys, help me out. Anybody else? 2 more. Only 2 more. And then Tatum's down in the top 10. 2 more.
LeBron.
I'm sure there's 2 more. LeBron, I take LeBron over Tatum.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not for the future, but in terms of talent right now.
Yep.
There's one. Yep. One more.
1-1.
There's got to be one more.
Would you take
Steph Curry? Steph Curry or Jason Tatum?
Steph Curry.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Jason Tatum?
SGA for sure. For sure.
I've named 11. I've named 11 players that we would take over Jason Tatum. There's others that are debatable.
Here. Truly NPR down here says AD. Are you taking AD? Are you taking AD? Because AD's got some question marks to him at certain points. Are you taking AD over Jason?
It's tough because they play very different roles. I think that's a little bit tough. I can see the role where you do take AD. I honestly do. But AD has to also stake his claim as a top 10 player overall. He's not really been consistently in this discussion, so it's a little bit hard. But maybe, right?
This is an interesting one down here. Jamal Murray. Are you taking? I can't go.
I'll take a playoff Jamal. I'll take a playoff Jamal. Yeah.
Have you seen that Minnesota Timberwolves defense is shutting that motherfucker down? I don't know. So
I still got faith in the Nuggets, though. I actually think if there's any team that can get off the mat here, it's them. I think the Minnesota they make it very hard, but I'm not ruling out the Nuggets just yet. I'm not out on them.
Oh, look at this, man. Peyton Pritchard, Tatum.
George Niang or Jason Tatum is crazy.
I'm taking the G-Wagon for tonight.
But that's the point. We named 11 to 12 players that you would take over Jason Tatum. Okay. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, and I'm telling you, I don't even know if overall, and listen, I'm not aloof. I understand Jason Tatum, the best guy guards him. He faces the most double teams. I understand his role in the offense and how he has to be. But here's my point. That role on the offense, all these guys we mentioned, I believe, are better than him at that role. And if I was the Boston Celtics, if I'm Mazzulla, and it's the end of the game, and I need, or if my team is struggling and I need somebody to take over and start to create offense, or if I need the last shot, give me Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum at this point. Kyrie, I take Kyrie. Kyrie, I don't know how we do in the role either, but yeah.
A big shot, best shot in NBA history in the NBA Finals. Yeah, I'm taking Kyrie over Jason Tatum especially if the game is on the line. But yeah, man, it's just a great, as Giles Strange says down here, points well made. Excellent point, man. That's why I bring you on. You're always dropping gems on these people, always dropping knowledge. For tonight, at least we can say the Cavaliers have emerged victorious, and this is just a monumentous win. We could go on and on and on. We've already talked for about an hour about this, but I'll leave you guys with this. Consider the fact that many people have counted this team out before the series has already been written, before the series has already been played. People have written this Cavaliers team off. Almost nobody, nobody in the national media has picked this team to win. Nobody of any relevance. I have faith in this team. Nikki has faith in this team, but many of the national pundits do not. The Cavaliers have a major opportunity to rewrite a lot of narratives here. They're on the big stage now. They've gotten past round one, which is huge for their confidence, and they have made the big bad in the East, the Boston Celtics, bleed. They punched them in the lip. They've thrown a huge haymaker, and now it's time to see what the Boston Celtics are made of on our home court. It is time to see if they can come to play. And I feel very, very confident that this has now become a series. That being said, if you want to show support for this podcast, one of the things that you can do, however small, but it is helpful, is consider becoming a paid member on Patreon for as low as $3 a month. You can pledge whatever you want. The link will be in the description. If you want to reach out to your boy, you know what you can do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you an invite, man. I feel so good. I can go to sleep knowing that I don't have to wake up in the morning in a piss poor mood. I can wake up in the morning not having to fight with a ton of people on social media. And one of the things that I love, the Cavaliers gave me all the ammunition that I need. I don't have to sit here and wallow in misery because the Cavaliers won a huge game tonight. Any closing thoughts from you, my friend?
For the first time in the 2024 playoffs, in the Cavaliers run, a road team has finally won a game, which means the playoffs have officially started. The Cavs can win this. It's going to be hard. The odds are still not in our favor, but today the world knows that we're not out of it, that we can actually upset the Boston Celtics.
Let's fucking go. That's the best place to leave it at that. That said, go Cavs and have a good night.